This is 10.9, dividing polynomials. Alright, let's look at a regular division problem. When I divide 6 into 144, the first thing I need to do is I look at 6 and I figure, does it go into 1? And clearly 6 doesn't go into 1, so now I have to move over to the next digit, and that would be 14. So now I look at 14 and I think, does 6 go into 14? Well, 6 goes into 14 2 times. So since it didn't go into the 1, I put the 2 on top of the 14. Now 6 times 2, I multiply that together and I subtract out that whole entire amount and I bring down my remainder. Now I bring down the next digit, which is a 4. 6 goes into 24 4 times. Okay, it doesn't go into 2, but it does go into 24. So 6 goes into 24 4 times. And so now what I do is I subtract that entire 24 and I'm left with no remainder. So I'm basically going to do the same thing when I'm dividing polynomials. Now, let me go back and I want to just make one more example. Okay, if I was dividing, let's say 62 into 144, the first thing I would do is I would look at my first digit. Okay, and I estimate just the first digit there, the tens digit. 6 goes into 14 approximately 2 times. So that's going to be the first one, but it doesn't go in, 62 doesn't go into 14, so I'm going to have to move over. 6 goes into 144 approximately 2 times. So I multiply that, I get 4, and I get 12, and then I subtract that whole amount, okay? Subtract it out, I'm left with 2. I'm left with 0, 2, and now I bring down the next digit. There is no other digit, so what do I do with that remainder? I take it, now I can make a decimal, but I don't want to do that. There's another method. I take the remainder and I place it over the divisor 62, and then I reduce it. We're going to do the same thing when we get a remainder when dividing polynomials. We'll take our remainder and we'll put it over the divisor. Okay? Now hold that, keep that on hold for a few minutes, and let's start with our polynomials. So the first thing I have to say to myself is how many times, what do I have to multiply x by to get the first digit in the dividend, or the first term in the dividend? So what would I have to multiply x by to get x squared? I'm going to have to mult x by another x, but because I have 2 digits here, let me keep going, because I have 2 digits here, I have 1 and 2, I need to put it over the second digit here. Not digit, I'm sorry, term. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the x times x and I get an x squared. So I line that right under my x squared. And then I'm going to have to multiply x times 5, and what I get is plus 5x. Now remember what we did once I had our number down here? We subtracted the whole thing, and we're going to do the same thing here. I have to subtract the entire number from the original dividend. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is, if I'm subtracting it, I have to distribute that negative, and that really makes that negative and that negative. Now x squared and negative x squared cancel out. What I'm left with is 4x minus 5x. Negative 4x, negative 5x. That makes negative 9x. And then I bring my next number down. my next term down. Minus 45. Okay, now one more time. Now I look at my x, and I have to think, tell you what, I'm going to just get rid of that. I look at my x, and I say, what do I have to multiply x by to get negative 9x? Negative 9x. So I'll have to multiply it by a negative 9. So put that up top, and then I multiply the entire binomial, x plus 5, by negative 9. What I get is negative 9x minus 45. But remember, I have to subtract the whole thing. So to do that, it's going to change both signs. What happens when I subtract those negatives? It turns them into positives. Negative times a negative is a positive. And so what we have, those cancel each other out, and then I'm left with 0. So the answer to this problem would be the quantity of x minus 9. Now earlier today I had some people say, why can't I just factor this out? Well, you can, but everything's not always factorable, and this happens to be a really easy one, but it's not going to work every time to factor. So when you get something that's not factorable, this is one way to divide your polynomials. Okay. All right, so let's try another one. Which one goes into the box? Remember my saying? Top dog goes in the dog house. And then I'm going to, x minus 4 is the divisor, x cubed minus 6x squared minus 7x plus 60 is the dividend. And our answer is called the quotient. Okay, so again, I say to myself, x times what equals x to the third? I'm going to have to multiply it by an x squared. X squared times x is x to the third. And x squared times negative 4 is negative 4x. So remember, I have to subtract the whole thing. So what that does is it makes the first one negative, the second one positive. Subtract it out. My x's cancel out. Positive 6x squared, negative 6x squared, positive 4x gives me negative 2x squared. And then I bring the next term down, negative 7x. Okay, so now I have to say to myself all over again, what do I have to multiply x by to get that first term, negative 2x squared? I'm going to multiply it by x times negative 2x gives me negative 2x squared. And now what I'm left with, and negative 2x times negative 4 makes positive 8x. Remember, I have to subtract everything. So it ends up changing my signs. What I'm left with is negative 15x, and then I bring my 60 down. Next. Oops, sorry about that. I take what goes into negative 15x. X times what equals negative 15x. It's going to have to be a negative 15. And so what I get is negative 15x. Negative 15 times negative 4 is plus 60. Remember, I have to subtract the whole thing. So it makes that positive and that negative. These cancel out, and I'm left with 0. So my answer, or my quotient, is x squared minus 2x plus 60. Okay? All right, pause the recording and you try the next one on your own. Now check your work. 2x times x squared would give me my 2x to the third. So I multiply the first binomial by x squared. I get 2x cubed minus 3x squared, but remember we have to subtract the whole thing. So that makes negative 2x cubed and positive 3x squared. Okay. My remainder is 14x squared. Bring down my, you can bring everything else down or just bring one term. Okay, so now what I've got is my 14x squared. 2x times what equals negative 14x squared. I'm going to have to multiply by 7x. What kind of 7x to get a negative? It has to be a negative 7x, and so what I get is negative 14x squared. Negative 7x times negative 3 is positive 21. Remember, I have to subtract everything, and it makes both signs inside that new binomial opposite, so I'm plus 14x squared. And what I'm left with is 24x minus 36. 2x times what equals 24x? Let's do plus 12, positive 12. So I multiply it in, get 36. What you should end up with is a 0. Your answer is x squared minus 7x plus 12. Okay. Here's one way that I'm going to, that the answer could be given to you. One factor of 3x squared plus 8x minus 35 is x plus 5. Find another factor. So here what they're doing is they're telling you what the dividend is and what the divisor is, okay? Or they're actually giving you the quotient. No, they're giving you the dividend. All right, so the big one goes in the box, and if you want to pause it, do it on your own. Take your time. Okay? Otherwise, check your work. So 3x minus 7 is the other factor. I'm going to skip through this slide. All right, so now we have a little bit of a unique situation on this one. When I'm dividing 5x minus 1, I look at 5x and I say, what do I need to multiply it by to get 5x cubed? So I'll need to multiply it by an x squared. So now what I'm left with is 5x cubed minus x squared. I subtract it out, the entire thing. Remember, every time, I'm not going to be writing it because my PowerPoint doesn't show it, but remember, when I subtract it, it turns the next one negative and this one positive. Changes it to the opposite signs. So what we're left with is 15x squared plus 23x minus 1. 5x goes into negative 15x squared. I would have to multiply it by negative 3x. Negative 3x, and I'm left with negative 15x squared minus 3x, plus 3x, sorry. Negative 3x times negative 1 is positive 3x. Subtract it out, and what I'm left with is 20x minus 1. Now this goes, 5x goes into 20x 4 times, positive 4. So what I get is 20x minus 4. Subtract it out, and then what I'm left with is a 3. There's no other terms to bring down. So this is where I stop. I take my what's left, my remainder, and I'm going to put it, I'm going to add it to what's already there, and I'm going to put it over the divisor 5x minus 1. Okay? Remember, if I have, let's say I have 24 and 3/4. This is the same thing as 24 plus 3/4. So adding that little plus sign there is not going to be any different. I'm just adding the fractional amount. $25 plus 25 cents equals $25.25. Okay, so take the remainder and put it over my divisor and add it to the, okay, so my answer is x squared minus 3x plus 4 plus the fractional amount 3 over 5x minus 1. Now, I know I put 5x dash 1, 5x minus 1 does not divide evenly. That is not the answer. This is in the circle. Okay? All right. There's one other exception that I would like to show you. Let me see if this one does it. I don't think so. It's not going to work here. Why don't you take a minute and see if you can do this one on your own. Pause the recording. Now, look at the question here. This one's saying find the remainder. So you do all your dividing, check your work. And what I'm left with is 7 over 2x plus 6. In this case, my remainder is 7. So that's all you would write if that were the question on a test. All right, I'm going to come back to, I'm going to add another slide. I'm going to show you one more. And let's play it. All right, if I had, let's say, give you a problem. X to the fourth minus 81 divided by x minus 3. Okay, so I take my first term and I write x to the fourth minus 81, and I'm going to be dividing that by x minus 3. I'm going to switch colors so you can tell. Let's go. All right, x goes into x times what equals x to the fourth. I'm going to say x2. Now let me show you what I'm going to do. What I'm missing here, actually let me erase this. I'm going to take this all the way down. Trying to figure out what color to do. Okay, I'm going to take this all the way down. Let me erase the whole thing. Rewrite it in a different color. All right. So I have my x minus 3 into, now notice I have the x to the fourth and I have minus 81. Now in between there, how many x to the thirds do we have? We have plus 0, blue here, plus 0 x to the thirds. I'll go green, how's that? I have 0 x to the thirds. So I'm doing plus 0 x to the third. How many x squareds do we have? 0 x squared. And how many x's? Plus 0x. And so what I'm doing is I'm just creating placeholders. Okay, so now I'm going to try it. X times what equals x to the fourth. I'm going to say x to the third. So now x to the third times x is x to the fourth. X to the third times negative 3 is negative 3x to the third. I'm going to subtract the whole thing, makes it positive. So what I'm left with is 3x to the third. Okay, bring down my next term, plus 0x squared. So x times what equals 3x to the third? I'm going to say plus 3x squared. So x times 3x squared is 3x to the third. And then I'm doing minus 9x squared. Subtract the whole thing, fix that negative and that positive. What I'm left with is 9x squared. These two cancel each other out. Now I'm bringing down my plus 0x, and I'm going to say x times 9x plus 9x, so I get 9x squared, and 9x times negative 3 is negative 27x. So what I'm left with is negative 27x, and now I bring down my final term, minus 81. And so what do I have to multiply it by? Negative 27. So what I get is negative 27, erase that, negative 27x, and negative 27 times negative 3 is positive 81. It's not working, so I have to subtract the whole thing. And what I am left with it's a negative, that's a positive. I'm trying to see why I'm not working out here. 27, those cancel out, should be left with a 0. I have to make this I'm going to try it again. Because I'm doing something wrong here and I'm not catching it. Because what I forgot to do, okay, I caught it. What I forgot to do is I forgot to subtract the whole thing. What I'm left with is negative and a positive, and so then I need to, let me erase all that. Okay, so now what we're left with is 27x minus 81. So what I have to multiply that last term by is positive 27, and what I get is 27x minus 81, but I have to subtract the whole thing, so that makes that positive and that negative. These cancel out, and we are left with 0. Okay, so my point being, notice I went from the 4th power to the 0 power. So I used placeholders so that I could still do the work. Okay? All right, pause the recording if you need to keep looking at the notes. Otherwise, that's the lesson for the day.